Hey guys, this is Deeflash and we're back with another video. This week we're going to take a look at adding a pad sound to a track and shaping it to fit what we're trying to go for, the sound. So what we're going to start out with is a track with a beat and a bass line. And we're going to throw an analog on this MIDI clip we have here. This MIDI clip is just repeating the same chord over and over again. So let's hear how that sounds to start. Okay, so that's a little harsh. So what we're going to do is shape this to fit our track a little better. So what we're going to do is we start out with, we have two oscillators turned on. We're going to detune oscillator 2. And that gives a little motion to the sound. And then we're also going to bring it down in volume a little bit. And right now we have both going into both oscillators going into filter 1. That's controlled by this parameter here. We're going to leave it at that, but we're going to bring filter 1 down a bit. And what we're going to do is bring up the resonance. And what bringing up the resonance does is it actually increases the peak right where the filter is at. So right now we have a low pass filter turned on, and what that does is it says anything below this frequency is what can get through. If you turned on a high pass filter, it would be anything above this frequency is what can get through. When you turn up your resonance, that actually accentuates the sounds right before the filter cuts off any sound. So I'm going to adjust that so you can just kind of hear what I'm talking about. And now what we're going to do is we're going to shape the sound by adjusting the filter envelope. Now what that does is we have our attack, our decay, our sustain, and our release. The attack is right as you hit the keys, or the notes in the clip are hit. That's the time it reaches to get to its peak volume. Your decay is once it reaches its peak, how fast it reaches the sustain volume. And then you have your sustain volume, and then you have your release, which is once you release the keys, how far it goes, the envelope goes until you're back at 0. Now that's how you also can adjust the amplitude envelope, but right now we're going to mess with the filter envelope, but the same basic concepts apply. So let's mess with this and see what we get. Adjusting this parameter changes the amount the envelope affects the filter. Note that the higher we turn it up, and you can even do this negative. So if we have it set to negative, what's going to happen is the filter is going to start open, go to closed, and then go back to open by the time the release is over. And if we wanted to add to that effect, we can adjust the amplitude envelope. And sometimes you want it to match, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want it to not follow the filter envelope. One thing I didn't mention is that we have our shape, and you can adjust that to change it to a square wave, a sine wave, or a what they call sample and hold, or a random wave form. Let's try square on this and see what happens. And we can adjust the pulse width if we want to. And that just changes how high and how low the oscillator goes. And if we want to, we can actually modulate some of these parameters with an LFO, which is a low frequency oscillator. So if we turn that on, and maybe we put it at, this is beat syncing it. So at 1 beat, it's going in a sine wave, up and down. And we can actually add that a little bit to our frequency. It's not key mapping. What retrigger does is every time you hit the note, it restarts the oscillator. But if we wanted to give this a little bit of a random sound to it, we can adjust the rate based on hertz and not turn on retrigger. And what Unison does is it detunes some of your voices to give it a bigger sound. So we could turn on Unison mode, set that to 4 and detune. I'm not too happy with how that sounds. And we could add a little bit of drive to the filter, which changes the characteristics of the filter slightly. Kind of like the sound of the symmetrical 2. And then just to kind of finish it off, we'll throw a chorus on it, which will widen the sound quite a bit. Let's hear how that sounds. And if you wanted to, you could also sidechain it. And what we're just doing is telling the compressor to kick in based on the kick. We're setting a moderate ratio, meaning for every amount that the kick comes in, that's how much you want to reduce the gain by this ratio. So if the kick comes in and sets the gain reduction to, or comes in about 1 decibel above, we're going to reduce the gain by 2 decibels or 2.52 decibels. We're going to do a lower attack. And a slightly higher release than what you start out with. And we're going to set this to pre-effects. And what's the difference between pre-effects and post-effects is, it's just we have a little bit of a gain reduction going on in this channel strip. So what you're going to do if you have post-effects turned on, it's going to send the signal after it goes through all your effects. If you do pre-effects, it's sending the signal before it goes through all the effects. It's pretty basic, but some people don't realize the difference. So just want to point that out. So you can hear how that LFO adds a bit of motion to the filter and gives you a different characteristic. I hope that helps you get started with analog and shows you how you can get a pad sound out of it. And if you have any tips or even some patches that you've done, feel free to share them in the comments. And thanks for checking out this video.